Hey sucky friends, Jessica here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about soil and propagation. This video is mostly in response to a video I received via Messenger about one of our sucky friends' plants and asking about her soil and how to best propagate. So I thought I'd just talk about those things because it's something that we could probably all benefit from. Number one, whenever you do your soil, I recommend for any of your succulents or cacti to make your own blend of soil. Even if you go out and buy the succulent cactus soil that's at the big box stores, it's still a little too heavy. You want that water to run out of there quickly. The way you water your succulents is you drown them, but only once every 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes once a week, depending on what the plant. But I usually do mine about once every 2 weeks. So you want to make sure I get just a normal cheap dirt, okay? And then I have a lot of perlite in mine. There are a lot of, this is my personal blend, so I don't mix this up to go and do our classes with this. But this is what I'm doing at home. So when I do our classes, I add a lot of sand or perlite, maybe some other types of grit to the soil, but this is what I use at home, and you can see it's got a lot of rock in it, and it's because I may replant stuff and my top dressing ends up getting in the soil, and that's totally fine. So it's really rocky, really sandy, got a lot of perlite in just a really cheap soil. Now I have also read that you can sterilize all your products, which will help with any kind of mold or different things that are in that. And essentially you would do that like you would sterilize canning jars. You do a lot of hot water, you put your dirt or whatever in some other metal container, you sit it down in there, let it kind of boil the dirt, not that the dirt is wet, but inside the boiled water, inside of another container, and you can do that. I don't ever do that. I have not been propagating lately because of the fact that I've just got so many plants, lots and lots of plants. I'm also working on gardening plants. So I brought out this very neglected propagation tray of mine. You can see I just recently threw these little guys on there, and you can see they're growing. Let's see if that'll focus on my hand. There we go. You can see a little bit of dirt there. Anyway, so that's just the little bit of roots that are growing off of that piece. Here's another little guy that roots are growing off of. I'm just trying to do this with my phone and it's not loving me. Anyway, but this is just a propagation tray. Now with your propagation trays, they're a little bit different than your normal watering. When you're propagating, when you're first trying to get those plants to create roots and get those roots to go into the ground, you want it to stay a little bit more moist. If you let it dry up too much, those roots are going to die just quick as they possibly can. You'll be thinking that you've got a good thing going on and all of a sudden they dry up. So make sure whenever I have, again, my soil in here is the same that I use over here. I just make sure I keep this wet. So once a day, twice a day, once a day or once every other day, depending on how deep my soil is, or whether or not, see, this pan doesn't drain, so I obviously don't want it sopping wet, but I keep this pretty moist while I'm propagating. So that's just something to keep in mind. And whenever you're messing with a plant, trying to propagate things like that, you want to make sure that you take, whether you're taking a stem of that plant or you're taking a leaf, let that callus over, that cut area, let it always callus over before you start to propagate. Otherwise, it'll just rot from the get-go. And also, if you're transplanting a plant, make sure you haven't watered it in 2 to 3 days, and then don't water 2 to 3 days after. And that is to help you with root rot. Whenever you change one plant, like if you're moving it from one pot to another, anything that you could do that actually may damage the roots a little bit, if you water right afterwards, you're going to cause root rot because that plant is damaged. So this is a little guy that I gave to a gift for a friend. And so she sent it to me about a week ago. I watered it about 3 days ago, and now I just planted it into a new little pot, and then I will take it back over to her and make sure that she gives it a little time before she waters it to make sure that it stays nice and healthy. It's a good looking little Haworthia window pane plant. She keeps it on her kitchen window, which doesn't get a ton of sunlight, so that's why it's a little taller than normal. But it's a good looking little guy. And so anyway, I hope that helps you a little bit. Make sure that your soil is got a ton of drainage to it, so that you can drench your plants and then let them dry out really good. And then again, when you're propagating, keep your soil a little bit more wet until your roots are good and formed down into the soil and you start to have some leaves on the top. So like with this little guy that I just showed you where he's getting some roots there, so he'd still want to stay moist until another plant starts to grow off of him. And then once that plant, the leaves on it are pretty big, then it's able to retain its own water and you don't have to water as often. But you definitely want to keep it in some moist water while it's growing those roots, so that it can grow to a strong, healthy plant. It's all about the fact that your plant is holding the water up in the leaves versus down in the roots, unlike normal plants. So I hope that's helpful a little bit. If you ever have any questions, just shoot me a message and I'll try to help as best I can. All right, y'all have a good day.